So on Tuesday, the rumors were that Florentino Perez was going to step down, and those rumors got even stronger when Spanish publication ABC published an article saying, yes, indeed, Perez will step down. That's not what it said, word for word, but yeah. So you see these rumors. Then you see a comunicado oficial from Real Madrid saying that President Florentino Perez is calling a press conference for that same day, which was yesterday. And what did he do? He did it all. Yes, he called that press conference to announce that there would be elections, even though there were just elections in 2025. The point being that this is kind of a show of power from him. He's calling them because he will most likely win once again. He may even run unopposed once again. But even though the elections announcement was supposed to be the main announcement, I guess, the things that people will remember are everything else that was said. We had Perez arguing with journalists, calling them ugly, bringing up Negreira again, reading headlines from his phone that he thinks are not nice to Real Madrid, saying that someone on the inside is trying to hurt the club, and more. It was surreal, it was bizarre, and let's get into it. So the world of online football fandom and the media in Spain were all positing that Perez would step down, but he opened the press conference by saying, quote, "I'm sorry to tell you that I'm not going to resign. Those who want to come out and stand against me, they can. I am also going to stand to defend the rights of our members. If somebody does want to stand, let them stand, but don't move in the shadows. I have asked the electoral board to begin the process of calling elections in which the current board will stand again." He also spoke about how there are journalists who say that he is sick and unwell and that he is in fact perfectly healthy. He called out journalists by name. He called out publications such as ABC, as mentioned in the intro, pointing to how they ran an article that said that Florentino Perez is very tired. In fact, he pulled out his phone, which he did a couple of times, and was really funny to see. It's just, there's this image of Perez that all of us have in our heads, I think. You know, whether you love him or hate him, whether you think he's the most corrupt man in the world or the most brilliant man in the world for what he's done at Real Madrid, I think a lot of people have this picture of Florentino Perez in their heads where he is an incredibly astute businessman, someone who is sort of a godfather-like figure in football, who's maybe even most intimidating in his silence, who pulls the strings in Spain, that he is completely undeterred by criticism, blah, 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 blah. Whatever other cartoonish villain or cartoonish business tycoon or cartoonish mob boss imagery comes to mind when you think of Florentino Perez. Then you see him up there getting caught up in arguments with journalists, pulling his phone out to show everyone articles about him or the club that he finds hurtful or proof of a conspiracy of criticism against Real Madrid. Like, it felt like we were just moments away from him pulling up TikToks and saying, see, do you see what this account, username True Catalanismo, is saying about my health? My brain is fine. I've never been sharper. And he recorded this on a crappy phone, I can tell. He didn't do that, but he did in fact say the following. Quote, "Real Madrid is the club with the most titles in the history of the world, the most valuable club according to Forbes, the most valuable brand. We have the highest rated squad according to Transfermarkt. We have it all. Why do some media criticize us?" You know what I mean? It's like saying we are the coolest, most successful individuals out there with the most money and the nicest cars. Why are people mean to us? He even asked, why doesn't the media criticize Atletico Madrid instead? I mean, surely he understands why, right? Surely he understands. Anyway, he challenged all of his critics once again, saying, quote, "Stop beating around the bush, take the plunge, step forward, and put up the necessary funds. Why isn't anyone running against me? It must be because they're afraid of me. Florentino isn't going anywhere until the members want me to leave. They'll have to shoot me to get me out." Which, of course, everyone is drawing comparisons to the Wolf of Wall Street scene where Jordan Belfort says,
"I'm not leaving. The show goes on."
Pretty apt, actually. I ain't leaving, only the members can get me to leave, and the Perez show goes on. Now, in the spirit of the show going on, Perez of course brought up the Negreira case and how he has had 7 titles stolen from him. He says he should actually have 14 league titles, and that, quote, "They've been paying for 2 decades, but the fact is that in this 3rd decade, it's the same referees. We will submit a comprehensive dossier to UEFA so that they can nip this in the bud and resolve the case for the good of world football. The corruption in the Negreira case is systemic, that we have to hear the CTA president say that these are things we need to forget, But how can we forget? We're putting together a 500-page dossier that we're going to send to UEFA. I've already gone to speak with them. There is simply no precedent in the history of world football. How can we possibly forget the biggest corruption case in history? It is incomprehensible that we continue to see referees from that era in a competition like La Liga. Whoa. The biggest corruption case in history? Perez also said that 500-page dossier that they're going to send to UEFA is a dossier they've been working on for 2 years now, and that we should all wait and see what happens on the criminal front as well as on the sporting front, should UEFA get involved in this. And you know what? After saying all these things, FC Barcelona came out with a statement of their own that said that following this press conference, their legal department is poring over everything that Perez said and considering all of the statements and accusations very, very carefully, which of course, speaking on these kinds of things publicly, like this kind of off-the-cuff press conference where Perez isn't really thinking about what he's saying too much, you do wonder if there could be repercussions from this or if Barcelona will just say, it's not worth it. He also spoke on the training ground bust-up, saying that these fights happen all the time, that they happen every single year that he's been at the club, actually. And you know what? I believe him that fights happen all the time, but for someone to have to get stitches, go to the hospital, is ruled out for 2 weeks because their brain got shaken up so badly, I don't know how common that is. But anyway, he said, quote, "For me, the leak is worse because it implies there's more to it than just a fight where the next day they're friends and go out for coffee. I think this is the first time I've seen it in my 26 years here, and that worries me too. It's not the first time two players have fought, nor is it the first time I fired coaches. I fired 3 coaches in 1 year. That's not the first time that's happened. And it's not the first time 2 players have come to blows. They fight every season because they get under each other's skin. What's happening here is that this year it's been reported for the first time, and we know who reported it." Now, I've also seen another quote in some places that comes after he said he knows who reported it, in which they allege he also said, and he's mad because he's leaving the club. And I could be wrong, but that kind of seems like it was made up. It was only posted by accounts that seem like your dime a dozen news aggregators that will repost absolutely anything without actually verifying if it's true or not. And what does that do? It puts potentially false accusations against a certain player who is maybe leaving the club soon. Now, speaking of mean journalists and publications that Perez doesn't like anymore, he got into an argument with ABC journalist Ruben Cañizares for a few minutes, and he said, quote, "Relevo, you knew what it was, right? It set out to make a digital newspaper that lost 25 million in its lifetime and whose only goal was to go after Real Madrid and its president. And I'm sorry, because my father read ABC and subscribed me many years ago, but now I have made the decision that I'm going to cancel my ABC subscription to honor my father, who will thank me for it." There was also a moment after this that went as follows. Perez, look at the 2 articles there, ABC, publishing today. One of them was written by a woman who I don't know if she knows anything about football or not. Cañizares, I'm a journalist. I don't attack Madrid. You're attacking my work. Perez, let her, female journalist Lola Hernandez, ask a question. You're all too ugly. Pretty stupid comment, in my opinion, implying that because an article was written by a woman, she may not know anything about football. I mean, who knows? Maybe he would say that about a man as well, but the way in which he said it seemed so like, check out this woman writing an article about me, eh, boys? Then follow that up with, hey, let the pretty one ask a question. It's just... After that, the journalist Ruben Cañizares tweeted the following, and yeah, I still call it tweeting and Twitter because that's a distinct name, unlike X. Anyway, he said, Florentino Perez has called a press conference to try to humiliate ABC, the Vicente Group, and me. And I wasn't going to allow it. There are limits that cannot be crossed. Very proud of my work and my newspaper. I don't think he called it just for that. But anyway, now when it comes to sporting matters, he said he wouldn't speak on them. And when he was asked about whether he is thinking of hiring Jose Mourinho, he said that they were not quite at the procedural stage just yet. Didn't deny the rumors outright at all. So I think there is an incredible amount of obvious smoke. And when there's an incredible amount of obvious smoke, there's probably fire. Plus you have the likes of David Ornstein, mega trustworthy, talking about it as well. Now, considering Perez doesn't actually call press conferences on his own very often, this was a big moment, no? This was the first time he had called a press conference where it's just him speaking since December of 2015. I've seen a huge range of reactions to this. Some people are a little worried about his mental sharpness at the moment, as he wasn't really resembling that tack-sharp, silver-tongued Perez from the past. He's stumbling a bit, he was repeating himself, mumbling and not speaking into the microphone a little while ago. He didn't even recognize a journalist he has been familiar with for years, that kind of thing. That doesn't necessarily mean an age thing. It could be a stress thing. It could be anything. Exhaustion because you're 79 years old, you're almost 80. There are others who are just saying, hell yeah, my president, he dunked on all of them, etc., etc. Overall, very supportive of their president after all of this. And there are probably people who fall into both camps and who fall into neither of them. I think that what Perez was trying to do makes sense. He was trying to call out the media that criticizes him in the club, as is expected from a president, while also saying that he is willing to call an election so he can give those naysayers a chance to run, which is, fair, right? If there are so many people that know better and can do a better job, then run against him. However, the big problem is he has run unopposed in the previous 4 elections for a reason. The requirements to be a candidate for Real Madrid presidency are prohibitively high, which is both a good and a bad thing. You have to have been an uninterrupted member of Real Madrid for 20 years, and you have to be able to provide a bank guarantee which is backed by your own wealth, which has to be worth 15% of Real Madrid's operating budget. Real Madrid's budget is over €1 billion, and so a candidate has to be able to guarantee just over 150 million euros. Wow. There are few who can do that. People want Rafael Nadal. He'll be eligible in 2031. The club changed to the 20-year requirement back in 2012 when Perez was in power, though even in 2009 when the requirements were lower, Perez still ran unopposed. So yes, of course, he has the right to call on those naysayers to run against him. But for me, this was an incredibly messy way to go about it. It felt rushed. It felt a little bit too off the cuff, rambly, incoherent at times when he wasn't speaking into the mic. Your average Rabona TV video. Anyway, this has been quite the week for Real Madrid supporters. Some will feel bolstered by what Perez said. Others will feel embarrassed with how he went about it. I'm curious to hear how you guys feel, you Real Madrid supporters, in the comments, part of the Rabona TV community. Anyway, this is the end of this video. I thank you for joining me for this one once again. I'll see you soon with another one. Bye.